America in 1912 was an era of stark contrasts. On one side were the gleaming symbols of progress. The Woolworth Building in New York had become the world's tallest skyscraper. Henry Ford had introduced the assembly line, making cars accessible to ordinary people, and a colossal ship named Titanic had embarked on its maiden voyage. On the other side, rural America still lived in centuries-old simplicity. Iowa, known as the heartland of America, was famous for its grain fields, straightforward people, and Christian values. According to the 1900 census, 70% of Iowa's population lived in rural areas. This was a time of invisible tension between progress and tradition. And in the very center of this Iowa lay Villisca, a town known for its simplicity, honesty, and sense of community. Founded in 1869, Villisca was a living example of the Midwestern American dream. With a population of 2,000, the town boasted 5 churches, 2 banks, an opera house, 3 hotels, and numerous businesses. Its people were primarily farmers, shopkeepers, and craftsmen. The main street, Lincoln Avenue, bustled every Saturday when farmers came to sell their goods. Children rode bicycles without fear, women visited each other's homes for tea, and men sat in front of the general store discussing politics and the weather. For the people of Villisca, safety and trust weren't just words, they were daily reality. Locking doors was considered rude. Leaving windows open at night was common. Everyone knew everyone else, their virtues, their flaws, their secrets. But beneath this surface peace, like any community, Villisca harbored seeds of tension. Business rivalries, personal jealousies, and religious differences all existed, but were never aired publicly. According to Midwestern values of respect and decency, such feelings were suppressed. Joshua Joe Moore was born in 1869, the very year Villisca was founded. He was a proud, hard-working man who lived by a code of honesty. His hardware store, located on Lincoln Avenue, was not only a business hub, but also a gathering place for the town's men. Joe's wife, Sarah Stout Moore, was a devout and active woman. She was an active member of the women's group at the Villisca Presbyterian Church, and always ready to serve the community's welfare. Their 4 children, Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5, were among the town's most beloved. The Moore family home, a 2-story wooden house on North 2nd Street, was always filled with joy. Herman loved helping at his father's store. Catherine, like her mother, was interested in singing and church activities. Boyd was mischievous but good-hearted, and Paul was everyone's darling. In early June, the Moore family was particularly busy. Sarah was preparing for the church's annual children's program where Catherine was to recite a poem. Joe was busy with business as farmers bought equipment for the summer harvest. On the evening of June 8, 1912, the family had dinner together. The menu consisted of potatoes, bacon, and fresh vegetables, all from their garden. After dinner, Sarah read the children a Bible story. They then discussed preparations for the next day's church event. No one knew it would be their last family meal. June 9, 1912, was a special day for Villisca. The annual children's program was to be held at the Presbyterian Church. By 7 p.m., families began arriving. Women wore their best dresses, men were in suits, and children were brimming with excitement. The Moore family arrived on time. Sarah, as a member of the organizing committee, arrived early. Catherine recited her poem beautifully, earning applause from the entire hall. The program included songs, skits, and prayers. The event ended around 9:30 p.m. People slowly trickled out, chatting and praising the children. The Moore family exited as well. Just then, Catherine's friend Lena Stillinger, 12, and her younger sister Ina, 8, asked if they could spend the night at the Moores. Their parents were poor laborers who had to leave for work early the next morning. Sarah gladly agreed. Upon reaching home, Sarah helped all the children get ready. A bed was made for the Stillinger sisters on a sofa in the living room. The other children went to their rooms. Joe and Sarah retired to their bedroom. By 10 p.m., the entire house was asleep. But that night, a ninth person was also present in the Moore home. According to later investigative reports, the killer had likely entered the house that evening. He might have even been present at the church program, from where he observed the Moore family and followed them home. There were several possible points of entry. A lock on a kitchen window was broken, but it might have been that way before. Perhaps he simply walked in through an unlocked door, not unusual in Villisca. He probably hid in the attic or basement, waiting for the family to fall asleep. He might have listened to their conversations, watched their nightly routines. The thought is chilling. A stranger, hidden in the dark, witnessing a family's final moments. Around midnight, the killer emerged from his hiding place. In his hand was an axe, likely taken from the Moore's own woodpile. The first victims were Joe and Sarah. The killer entered their room and struck Joe in the head, then Sarah. Both were in deep sleep, likely unable to make a sound. The killer then moved to the children's rooms, first Herman's room, then Catherine's. Both children were sleeping. He struck their heads with the axe. Next was the room shared by Boyd and Paul. Little Paul probably never knew what happened. Boyd might have stirred slightly but didn't escape. The killer then descended to where the Stillinger sisters slept. Lena likely woke to a sound. She probably struggled. Her hands showed defensive wounds, but she couldn't fight off an adult. Her younger sister Ina was likely asleep. 8 murders, perhaps in less than 15 minutes. And not a single scream was heard from the house. What happened after the murders makes the case even more mysterious and terrifying. The killer didn't flee. He remained in the house for hours. When police and investigators arrived in the morning, they found several strange things. 1. The windows were covered. The killer had covered all the windows with clothes and blankets to prevent anyone from seeing inside. 2. Food had been prepared. In the kitchen, a pan was on the stove. Bacon and coffee had been made. Some of the coffee had been drunk. 3. Clothes were folded. Some clothes were neatly folded on a dresser. 4. Hands had been washed. There was water in the basin and a used towel. The killer had washed his hands. 5. Bodies were covered. Some victims were covered with blankets, as if to spare them indignity. 6. A strange memento. A 2-pound slab of bacon was left in the kitchen. What did it mean? Was it a message from the killer? The killer acted so calmly and without hurry, as if he were in his own home. He was confident no one would come. He was neither scared nor panicked. His actions seemed ritualistic, a horrific, mysterious ritual. He likely left the house around 4 a.m. He left the axe, blood-stained, in the house. He vanished without leaving any clear trace. On the morning of June 10th, neighbor Mary Peckham grew suspicious. Sarah Moore would wake at 6 a.m. every morning for her chores, but it was 8 a.m. and no sound came from the house. The windows were covered from the inside. Mary knocked on the door. No answer. She called Joe's brother, Ross Moore, who lived nearby. Ross opened the door. The scene inside was a lifelong shock. Ross first entered the living room where the Stillinger sisters' bodies lay. Then he went upstairs. Every room held the silence of death. Ross immediately ran to the sheriff. Sheriff J.H. Horton soon arrived at the scene. What he saw shook him too. 8 people, an entire family and 2 guest girls, had been killed with an axe. The police sealed the house, but it was too late. News spread like wildfire. Hundreds gathered out of curiosity. Some even broke windows to get inside. People touched the beds, stood on bloodstains, destroying evidence. This was 1912. Forensic science was in its infancy. Fingerprinting was a new technique, unavailable in a small town like Villisca. Photography was limited. The local doctor, Dr. Edwin S. Loomis, examined the bodies. He reported that all murders were committed with an axe, and victims had suffered multiple blows to the head. Death would have been instantaneous. Police noted, All windows and doors were locked from the inside. The killer had visited every room. The axe bore fingerprints, but the crowd had smudged them. No evidence of theft. Nothing valuable was missing from the house. 1. The mysterious preacher, Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who was in Villisca on the night of the murders. Reverend George Kelly was a controversial figure with mental illness, accused of asking children inappropriate questions. He was at the church program and was seen watching the Moore family. After his arrest, Reverend George Kelly repeatedly confessed to being the killer, detailing how he committed the murders and what he did in the house. But he later retracted his statements. From jail, Reverend George Kelly wrote strange letters. One said, "I killed them because they were sinners. God commanded me." Another letter mentioned details not known to the public, like the bacon slab and covered windows. But evidence against him was weak. Some witnesses claimed to have seen him far from town that night. No bloodied clothing was found. His fingerprints weren't on the murder weapon. Reverend George Kelly was tried twice. Both times, the jury found him not guilty. Many believed he merely sought attention or, due to his mental illness, believed he committed murders he didn't. 2. The powerful man, Frank Jones. Villisca's most powerful man, a successful businessman, bank officer, and politician. He had an old business dispute with Joe Moore. The story went that Joe Moore once worked at Frank Jones's store. Later, he opened his own hardware store, becoming competition. Some believed Frank Jones decided to harm Moore. Rumors said Frank Jones hired professional killers. Some witnesses claimed to have seen strangers coming and going from his house that night. But Frank Jones was a respected man with good lawyers. When questioned, he provided a solid alibi. He was home that night, confirmed by his wife and servants. Frank Jones was never charged, but remained a suspect in the eyes of many until his death in 1920. 3. The railroad worker, William Bill Mansfield. A quiet, lonely railroad worker who behaved strangely after the murders. His co-workers noticed he seemed unusually anxious and fearful. His clothes had coal dust and dark stains. When questioned, Mansfield said he was at work that night. His boss confirmed he was on the night shift. However, some investigators suspected his alibi might be false. Railroad records had inconsistencies. Without solid proof, police couldn't charge him. Mansfield left Villisca a few years later. His fate is unknown. 4. The serial killer theory. Some criminologists believe the Villisca murders were the work of a serial killer. In the early 1900s, several similar axe murders occurred in the Midwest. Villiers, Kansas, 1911. An entire family killed with an axe, windows covered. Colorado Springs, 1912. A family murdered. The killer cooked food in the house afterward. An Oregon murder, 1913. Similar details. Axe, covered windows, staying in the house. A potential suspect was Paul Mueller, a German immigrant who traveled by train. Mueller was mentally ill, believing God commanded him to kill, but he was never caught, and there's no proof he was in Villisca. The murders changed Villisca forever. The town where doors weren't locked became a town of locks and keys. Behavior changed. Children weren't sent out alone at night. Men slept with weapons. Neighbors were viewed with suspicion. Church prayers now included pleas for safety. The town's psychology was altered. Where there was once trust and community, there was now fear and doubt. People began saying, Villisca was never the same. News spread nationwide. Newspapers called it the Villisca Axe Murders. The New York Times, Chicago Tribune, and other major papers featured it on the front page. People flocked to Villisca, journalists, detectives, and the curious. Some believed the killer was still in town. Others said he had fled. But everyone asked the same question: who and why? The investigation into the Villisca murders is a tragic story of the limits of early forensic science. In 1912, the concept of preserving a crime scene was almost non-existent. Key mistakes. 1. No crowd control. Hundreds trampled the crime scene, destroying evidence. 2. No fingerprinting. Fingerprints weren't taken until days later. By then, many had handled the axe. 3. Limited photography. Very few, poor-quality photos were taken. 4. Inadequate interviews. Many potential witnesses were never questioned. 5. Poor record-keeping. Police kept poor records. Many documents later disappeared. Because of this, the killer was never caught, and perhaps never will be. The Moore house still stands, though no one lives there. Over time, it has become a haunted site. Locals claim crying is heard from the house at night, the sound of children's footsteps. Windows open and close on their own. Sometimes the smell of cooking bacon. Are these really ghosts? Or is it the town's collective trauma, unhealed even after a century? Every year on June 9th, some light candles in front of the house, remembering the 8 innocents. Some believe their souls won't rest until the killer is revealed. From 1912 to today, the Villisca Axe Murders remain one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Books, documentaries, and podcasts have been made about it, but core questions remain. 1. Who was the killer? A local or an outsider, acting alone or with others? 2. What was the motive? Not theft, revenge, insanity, religious fanaticism? 3. Why did the killer stay so long afterward? What was he doing? Completing a ritual? 4. Was the killer ever caught? Perhaps for another crime, but never linked to Villisca. 5. Will the truth ever emerge? Probably not. All eyewitnesses are dead. All evidence is gone. Villisca's story isn't just about a murder. It's a story about human fear, broken community, and the timeless allure of unsolved mysteries. This tragedy taught several lessons. 1. The illusion of safety. Villisca's people thought they were safe in a small, familiar community, but evil can enter anywhere, anytime. 2. The importance of forensic science. This case showed how crucial it is to preserve a crime scene. 3. The strength and weakness of community. On one hand, Villisca's people supported each other after the tragedy. On the other, suspicion and fear drove them apart. 4. The allure of mystery. A century later, people remain fascinated, perhaps because unsolved mysteries remind us of human limitations. The story of the Villisca Axe Murders transcends time. It's not just an event from 1912. It's a story about the human condition. 8 innocents died. A killer was never caught. A town was forever changed. Yet there's an irony in this story. Joe Moore and his family might have been forgotten if they had died ordinary deaths. But this mysterious tragedy made them immortal. A century later, people know their names and tell their story. Perhaps this is life's greatest irony, that death sometimes saves us from being forgotten. The mystery of Villisca may never be solved. But perhaps some mysteries are better left unsolved. Perhaps some questions should remain unanswered, so we remember that the world still holds mysteries, still holds wonders, still holds things beyond our understanding. And perhaps, most importantly, Villisca reminds us that every life is precious, every family is special, and every moment matters, because you never know which moment will be the last. Thanks for watching, guys. If you found this story important, please like and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you can be the first to know about such real-life stories.